decrease in acres. With that, it's one of those things we have to continue to say. And Morgan said that. I mean, with her presentation, you got to tell your story. You got to get that out there with that. So we are collaborating. Department of Ag is. We held a meeting in July in Salina, and at that meeting, it's multi-agency. We're there. We had KBI, fire marshal, private industry, stakeholders were there. The coalition was there. The consortium was there, planted. And so, we're doing the best that we can to bring folks together to get those acres increased in the future with that. But again, KDA only regulates the growers. The fire marshal has the processors, and the retailers kind of still out there. So one of those things that we have. A number of you on the call today, and Kelly, I know that you've already RSVP'd. December 20th, we are going to have a full work session for a few hours in Abilene at Sterile Hall on the fairgrounds there to bring folks together. And it really is a work session. For those that have already registered, we've asked about what's the issue, followed up with what's the problem, and what can we do for a solution. So we're going to have 3 hours together, very hands-on focus with that discussion to see what we can do collectively to move forward with that. So big picture, lots of pieces and parts. We do need to get those acre numbers up. So let's work together. Let's work through some of the issues, problems, solutions, December to go forward for 2023. So I think there's some things that we can do with that. So again, we're following national trends, Kelly, with our acres going down, lots of things for different reasons with that. And I know the first couple of years, it was just interesting in Kansas, kind of a Wild West with it, but we've got it all flushed out. So we're excited about it. We just have to make sure we keep doing it right with that.
Absolutely. Yes, I completely agree. And also reflective in the licenses that you've alluded to over time at different events is the fact that, over 90% of the original farmers that grew the first couple of years grew for CBD and for extraction biomass, but now we're kind of seeing a transition to the fiber and grain kind of we have to be looking at those other industries and sectors because those are the most bang for our buck, I guess, and the longest sustainable long-term growth economically for it. So that kind of leads into the next question. Industrial hemp is such a versatile plant with so many uses. So what do you maybe see the biggest market growth sector in industrial hemp? We've kind of talked about it a little bit with Morgan, but what are you guys looking at on the economic development side?
Wish I had a crystal ball. So with that, KDA, we're a really good conductor of bringing people together with that. And we can't predict any of the economic indicators for growth with hemp, but again, we need to see those acres increase with it. And we're really, really excited about the fiber and grain industry in Kansas. Doing it right, Kansans can grow. We are good producers with that. Those in the CBD market, getting that figured out. So, I mean, we're kind of oversaturated the market when we started, kind of making sure that that's all kind of, you guys have worked through that as an industry on where we're at with that. But like I say, excited about where things are going with fiber and grain. We were really excited when the information came out on hempcrete that's recently been added to the U.S. Building Code Appendix. So that is huge for the industry. And I know we have a number of folks on that are processors that work within that industry, but that's someplace we can grow. So, I mean, efforts on behalf of associations, consortiums, groups, we really need to think, who do you need to talk to get additional regulations loosened up or appendixes opened up to get approved for building stuff? Is that going and talking with the Kansas Builders Association? Where does that look like? Those are efforts within your organizations that you can make great strides, and then that opens up that market for growth. So there's a lot of steps to go through with it, but it's super exciting on that. Sustainable building materials, you have a perfect market right now for that. Again, that's not KDA, that's a lot of other organizations. We just take care of the growers. But make sure that you have the product from your growers to be able to say, we've got the demand and supplies that you need. With that, the animal feed component gaining some traction. I'm going to guess we're probably going to talk about that in one of your future questions on that, but more research with that. Again, super excited about the building piece of that. And Kansans on the other end of it, we've talked about, Kelly, since we've been together in 2018 with Industrial Hub. Kansans like a tangible product. And I think there are so many great opportunities for economic growth in our state with tangible products, to where then more growers are going to want to jump on board with it, knowing what those end products are. And we've talked about that since the beginning. Know what your end product is. That reflects what seed you're going to plant, what we need for acres, what that demand is. So, along with that, the animal feed piece, we work under the AFCO guidelines with it. As Morgan stated, and one of her slides showed really well, all the different institutions that are participating with all the different research. But anybody that's in there understands that FDA wants X amount of numbers in a study, and that kind of changes. So maybe the conversations need to be started to get multiple institutions with the same research. So we have that replicated study with it to get those numbers up, because it takes years for one institution to have enough background on it versus maybe having 4 or 5 institutions that have the same study. There were some repeated ones on the list that Morgan had, and that's the perfect way to go. But maybe those are some conversations within the industry to help get those numbers that FDA need, that AFCO wants to see. So instead of lots of little research projects, which are all really important, don't get me wrong on that one, but we need those numbers, and that will really help move things along on the feed side of things.
Absolutely. And so let me go back just a little bit, just to touch on your point is very well made about the fact that the sustainability piece can go from single-use products to hempcrete, that uses lime, which Kansas is rich in. So we already have these resources that are available to us. And it's really just a matter of making the connections and knowing what it means to your operation. The biggest opportunities for growth and obstacles, we kind of touched a little bit on the regulatory changes, and kind of what Morgan was referring to as far as at the state level. I'm sure that we will be talking at the workshop in Abilene about what we can do at the state level to say, okay, maybe we can put enforce some provisions that directs the department to treat hemp feed or hemp seed a certain way due to the research now that we have that shows there are minimal cannabinoid profiles, that kind of thing. We hope that we can get to that point where maybe we can at the state level make some changes, even though the federal train that's been sledging along, it isn't quite where we need it to be yet. So we'll hopefully that we can have those conversations, because we know that like she mentioned, the generally recognized as safe, those designations are existing within FDA, but there's a lot more that has to go into that. So thank you for kind of fleshing that out for us. It's very true. So the next question I'll go to: what support does KDA offer to producers and prospective producers of industrial hemp? And are there ways that KDA plans to support growers in the coming years, in addition to what you had talked about? If there's anything else that we maybe need to know, or something on the horizon.
Right. As far as supporting growers, it goes back that we don't have any grants. We don't have direct support with that. That's not KDA's role with that. So, we fall within our USDA program that's been funded on the commercial side with it. We're really excited to be able to have that at the state level with that. I do know that there are programs, NRCS has a federal program that has high tunnels that are available with that. There's also some programs through the Environmental Quality Incentives Program through NRCS. So not necessarily KDA driven, but I think there are other organizations that have opportunities as well with it. But like I say, we are not set up with any grants or specific programs to help fund growers. We're here to support you. We will work, across agencies to help out however we can, but we don't have any of that direct support. Dollar wise, we're always here for you.
You are, and you do have some resources on your website that are very helpful. So everyone should go out to the Department of Ag website, and they've gathered a lot of those kind of research, including K-State. They're linked in there, and information about the application, how to get involved with that whole process, and what that may look like for your operation. So thank you for that. Our understanding is that KDA has jurisdiction over the Kansas Grain Inspection Services. Do you know if, well, first of all, is that accurate? And do you know if they're gearing up for maybe what's happening or can occur for inspecting hemp seed in the future years?
Sure. Grain inspection is not administered by KDA. They are a private entity that was set through legislative amendments. So their services are available but their input cost, time, inspection wise, only allows for so much. So grain inspection, they're housed in Topeka off Lower Silver Lake Road with it. But then we also work with Kansas Crop Improvement Association, which works with AOSCA on the seed certification on that. So there are a couple entities out there. I know that Steve Schutler, who's the director of Kansas Crop Improvement Association, is on the board, very in tune. He's done a lot of research on behalf of certified seed with that. So on the certified seed path, there is a path on that piece with it. But grain inspection, they are their own entity. KDA has interaction is very limited on that. So I can't answer what their plans are. That would be a side discussion, face-to-face meeting sometime with them, with any of your associations.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for that clarification. We were kind of wondering, and as a crop adjuster, I'm out here looking at fields and seeing the damage and losses from other crops, and we've got to do state grades for quality and things like that. So it's something that I think may be something in the future that we'll want to consider. And it's also interesting to see, we talked about drought earlier, farmers are struggling right now just to produce plants themselves. And if there is an option maybe that can grow larger biomass, larger plants and produce more for farmers, we can hopefully get ahead of some of that. People can get ahead of the curve. So finally, would the KDA like to see perhaps a hemp commission formed that, similar to what sorghum or soybeans, wheat, and corn? And if so, is it likely that the current maybe advisory board would be involved, or what does that maybe look like?
Sure. It's a good question, Kelly. I mean, it's out there as a new crop with that. And so on the commodity piece of it, we would be happy to bring forth any conversation and utilize our advisory board and have them weigh in on an industry assembled commission. However, with that, you talked about sorghum, soybean, wheat, corn commissions. Those were self-imposed by their industries, and the hemp commission, would be required to have that industry support on taxing of your growing materials in order for that commission to even be established and to exist in some official capacity. That's not something we do. You as an industry, everybody have to be on board to tax that growing material. with it. And, the administration of that also goes through the agency, but it's through legislation that it would be added. So a question to consider for everyone that's, on the call today is long-term. Would that commission operate, with the different interests that everybody has? If you're growing, are the fiber and grain folks willing to support initiatives on the CBD side? Are the CBD folks willing to support initiatives on the grain and fiber side? So, we're not about supporting with it and going forward to Topeka with that legislation, but I think you have quite a few discussions ahead of you before being able to do that, because it's an industry as a whole. It's coming together as one industry. So out of that, from the earlier numbers, the growers in 18 counties right now that have harvested, that's where the money's coming into. It's imposed on the growers. The growing material goes into that association with that. So, I mean, that's something really to think about on a commission. And until the number of growers increases, it's a fine line. We will support whatever you want, but that may be a few years down the line, because that would be pretty hefty. Or on the 39 counties of growers that put in for a license, until it's grown, we have nothing to be able to collect on. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, that makes total sense. And it goes back to that. You can't always have a crystal ball on some of that. It will be interesting to see some of the potential changes in the 2023 Farm Bill. And, we've talked about a fiber and grain exemption and a number of other potential aspects. And you're right, this does have to do with hemp becoming a marketable commodity. And that will come with trading on other commodity market exchanges, just like other crops, treating it like other crops. So with that, Dana, thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us today, and always for your support in this and your information. So that wraps up the Q&A session. I want to go ahead and hand it over to Robin, who will talk with our other processing harvesters. I should call them harvesters today. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. And it looks like, Troy, you are ready and able. So we're going to dig into the hemp, grain, and fiber processing in Kansas. Welcome, Troy Palmer. He is an entrepreneur in the very purest sense of the word, the former president and CEO and founder of Global Parts Groups, Inc. Troy first incorporated in 2003 and sold the company in July of 2021. to VSE Aviation, a publicly traded company. Utilizing his experience in spare parts at Raytheon, combined with historical data, trends, forecasts, and market research, Troy built a career being able to project demand for aircraft parts. He formed Global Parts as a parts distributor for Raytheon's legacy division. When Raytheon sold the company to the Hawker Beechcraft Corporation in 2007, Global Parts Group was able to bid on and secure the entire legacy division of spare parts. Through the years, Troy secured other long-term contracts with Bombardier's legacy parts division. Troy prides himself on the relationships and partnerships formed during 27 years in the aviation industry. Wow. Today, Troy serves on the board of Kansas Hemp Consortium and is a founding member of Midwest Hemp Technology. In addition to hemp processing and aircraft parts distribution, Troy is a partner in the golf courses in Augusta and El Dorado, excuse me. He is deeply committed to his family and his hometown and creating new opportunities for quality of life enhancements in Butler County. Troy is a graduate of Butler County Community College and Wichita State University. Troy, your history is impressive to say the least.
Thank you.
If you want to say anything on that, you sure can. Otherwise, I can dig right into the questions.
Yeah, let's dig right in.
Okay. Well, Midwest Hemp Technology just hosted a community open house and is coming online in Augusta, Kansas. You will be processing industrial hemp grain into hemp seed oil and protein powder. You're buying industrial hemp fiber bales from Kansas farmers and making hurd fiber and dust. This is incredibly exciting, and it seems that Kansas might be, setting the pace for the country. That's what we hope anyway. So please tell us a little bit about how you have seen the industry evolve since your introduction, I suppose, in 2019.
Sure. I'd like to talk about a little bit about our when we had our. I'm sorry. I wanted to talk a little bit about the hosting of the industrial hemp show that we had at our facility. The biggest thing that we wanted to get across to people was education and the perception, and that's why we actually hosted that. We were able to show everybody how the bales come in, what the hemp looks like, what the machines that run everything look like, kind of walk them through it, and then understand that we're dealing with a seed rather than a bud. So I guess the biggest thing that I've seen is the perception. We're starting to get people educated. We're doing our best to make that happen. It's a slow process because there's not a lot of people outside of who exists today other than ourselves that are promoting this. I think everybody's on the sidelines just kind of waiting, but we're trying to provide some positive energy to make it happen. And then I think once the farmers catch on that it's also $1 billion industry, and it gives them another outlet to be able to something else to do. I think it'll catch on, and we'll move forward from there.
Education, perception, and a positive attitude. I think those are the three main things.
Yeah.
On there. Okay, well, you have a lot of experience in the aircraft business, obviously, and you're also a successful and well-respected entrepreneur. What drew you to industrial hemp as a business person, and what do you see as the other areas of opportunities for hemp-entrepreneurs in this space?
I think what got me driven to it was when I saw the big boom on the CBD side of things. That got me excited. After doing a little bit of research, I figured that was already taken care of by the time that I got into it. There was plenty of people out there doing it. So, we had a good local group, and some of them are on this call right now. And so we did some brainstorming, and we decided that the best thing that we could do is advocate for the industrial hemp side of things. We see it adding more value as far as jobs. We see it helping the farmers. There's the retail shops as well, and then it can branch out to other things, into the textile worlds. It can branch out into a lot of things. It can help the universities do research or give them justification to do so. So, as far as adding jobs, that's important to me. I was our second largest employer. It's a small town, but it was still exciting to see that. It's neat to see all the employees there and how it helped the town. And we're doing everything we can to make that happen. We have a lot of regulations we got to get through. I'll bite my tongue on this call, but anyway, we need everybody's support to make things easier, though, to get this done. Otherwise, people are just going to turn away. And so, sorry, we had something recent happen today that gave me a little bit frustration, but things are going good. We have a great plan going forward. We are going to help everybody the best that we can.
You're absolutely right. The diverse potential of this seed and this crop, it means dream big and bring those dreams to Kansas, plant them here.
It is. It creates a lot of opportunity because, you got the herd, you got the fiber, you got the grain. And then from there, you got many things that you can do from there.
Yeah.
And so we need all the resources we can to make that happen, But we've tried to make it easy on the farmers, right? Because we want to be able to take it in. They need somewhere to take it. So we want to help on that. There's another facility in Kansas, or maybe two more, which is great. We need more of them. we need a lot more, and we need a lot more farmers growing it. But we need a lot of, as I said, the perception of it, and then we need regulators to help.
You guys are
Okay.
leading it, and it's pretty amazing. I know you're exhausted. Okay, so you've already told us a little bit about the products that you guys are making. Midwest Hemp Technology, what do you see as more promising markets for industrial hemp?
You know, we try to keep it simple, and it was mentioned earlier in this presentation. So, you know, our main goals right now will be targeting the hempcrete and building needs. We're going to go after animal bedding, and then there's a lot of opportunity on the food and beverage side too. That's going to take a little bit more work to get there. But right now we're trying to keep it simple because, I mean, there's just, as everybody will find out, there's no cash flow coming in right now. Everything that you're doing, R&D, and it's hard to show an ROI right away. But it takes people like all of us to get the process started. And then hopefully, again, the positive energy catches on, and then it snowballs from there. But we're talking it's a $1 billion industry, easily. I mean, if you look at soybeans, wheat, and corn, and you know, we're given guaranteed buybacks on the product and so forth. So I think that we can really help benefit the farmers, with that being said.
Benefit the farmers. Here. Kansas as an ag state, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And we're eager for the ROI, of course, but we also know research is never going to stop. And that's kind of the beauty of this. Innovators, and then taking it that step further with the inventions that are yet to even be, I don't know, even be created in our brains. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Troy,
I appreciate the opportunity, and I know everything got covered pretty much before this, so I just kind of wanted to touch on the general topics.
you did good. Thank you for your time and your wisdom. Keep doing the good work out there. Okay. One last thing from me. This is a heads up. There will be a survey hitting everybody's inbox here shortly. So when we wrap this up, make sure to check your email, and please send us some survey comments that let us know what other content you would like to see on these virtual events. And on that note, Frank, it is on to you, good sir, you and Rich.
Well, thank you very much, Robin. And everybody, let me just take a couple of minutes to apologize because I was late getting all my technology going. When you're 108, it takes a while to get your technology where it needs to be. But Sarah stepped up, Brandy stepped up, and here I am, still showing Robin's face. I'm over here in one of the screens, but that's okay. I don't know how you make that work. As long as you can hear my voice. Sarah, can you give me thumbs up if you can hear? And that's okay because I have a face for radio, not for the screen. So that's quite all right. I just want to say this. In 2019, when I got involved and with some friends had the vision to put the first conference on hemp, I really didn't know what was going on. Most of us really didn't know. I had discovered hemp. I had a passion for industrial hemp, and it's been growing since, and learn about other things. Back then in 2019, a lot of it was about CBD, and I was, kind of took a back seat but I always continue with the belief that hemp, it's a holistic plant, and it can be a blessing in so many ways for not just us, but the world. Last Tuesday, a week ago from Tuesday, we reached 8 billion people in planet Earth. Okay, that's a significant number because I understand that from recorded history to 1980, if we put all the people on planet Earth that lived during those years, I don't know how many thousands of years, is less than the people that currently are on planet Earth. And that is a huge thing when you're talking about construction, when you're talking about food, when you're talking about all these things. I think hemp is more relevant than ever. Now, that's my piece, and I want to thank all of you that have continued supporting these efforts to learn more about this wonderful plant. I cannot tell you, I get goosebumps now that I get to introduce Rich Selby to this conference. I mean, to have somebody of this caliber, to have Dana back over and over, to have Troy speaking. I mean, I remember the first conference and who spoke at that one. Dana was there, and somebody from K-State, Dr. Griffin was there. But after that, we really didn't know what we were doing. And since Sarah came on board, now we have people like Rich. And I have a pleasure to introduce him. And let me tell you a little bit about Rich as we go on. Richard Selby serves as board president of United Cooperatives, Inc., a farmer-owned cooperative and industry partner for Tiger Fiber, based in Plattsburgh, Missouri. Richard was raised in rural Iowa and has over 35 years of global agribusiness experience. I'm looking, Richard, he must have started when he was 9 or 10. 35 years of global agribusiness experience in new crop technology and uses in rural development. Prior to his 25-year private sector career, Richard worked for 5 different government agencies and was a regional representative for U.S. State Department Rural Development Initiative, and has either lived or spent time in over 70 countries. Forget what I said about 9 years old, must have been 5. A regular Sheldon from,
A little older than you think.
TV. He is a lifelong member of the Silicon Valley Growth Partners Group in the Irish Technology Leadership Group. You see why I tell you I got goosebumps when I got to introduce Rich? Richard is a co-founder of Tiger Fiber Hemp and is on the board of directors. Richard is a graduate of the University of Iowa, resides with his wife, Letana, and his 2 children in Kansas City. Rich has some remarks for us, and after that, I will follow up with a couple of questions. Rich, welcome doesn't seem to be enough to have you with us, but that's all I got, so please take the floor.
Thank you, Frank. Can everybody hear me okay? Hey, Frank, you stole my line. I have the face for the radio and the voice for silent movies. So anyway, I'm happy to be here, everybody. And also, I notice a lot of great companies. This is a high quality webinar. I mean, I have the greatest respect for Ken Elliott and his team at IND Hemp. We've been talking with them about the industry for a couple of years now, and also New West Genetics. I see some employees there, and this is purely, I'm going to talk purely from a fiber perspective, but I'm hoping that our board will approve a grain growing with New West technology in that. And then South Bend Industrial Hemp, I have a lot of respect for Melissa. What can I say about what's been going on in Tiger Fiber? I never thought when I was a young man that the good Lord would have me become a hemp grower, but that's what I am. And I don't like to call it industrial hemp. We call it agricultural hemp, and because we have nothing to do with the CBD market. I mean, we let that market kind of evolve by itself. It's all about fiber. So we've been in business. This is our 5th year in business. And the company was co-founded by myself, Jared Kaloran, and James Forbes. And I play 2 roles in the company. I manage the finances and bookkeeping, and I also manage the front end agronomy. And we're very interested in Kansas, especially Eastern Kansas. We're investing in a genetics operation near Topeka. The company needed capital, so we've raised about, I'd say, $12.6 million so far in equity and new market tax credits. We're also currently subcontracting on a pretty large USDA grant in Decatur, Illinois. So I'm talking farther east, but I'm going to move west here throughout my presentation. And believe it or not, we have a facility operating for the last 6 months, 5 ton an hour capacity in Sauget, Illinois, right across the river from St. Louis. And so our goal is to build we don't view other fiber processors really as competition, because these have to pretty much be set up in good ag regions in a 100-mile radius. So every 200 miles, you're going to need one of these, and I'll tell you why. finding the markets we thought would be, we'd have to spend a great deal on marketing and convincing. We have not, that's not our problem. Our problem, we are the egg waiting for the chickens to hatch them for us. So we're like the egg processing plant that wants the chickens to process for us. Our two biggest problems are finding growers willing to grow at scale, and I'm going to talk a lot about that, and then keeping our plant operational. We've had some hiccups, some issues with bearings. We have a 14-stage processing line. It's not just decortication. It's quite a big investment, and it's a very high-end cotton gin is how I would explain it. And so we're getting this up and running, and we're going to be building 12 of these in the next 10 years is our plan. I mean, that's always a plan, but our next two candidates are somewhere around the Topeka area, preferably north of I-70, and Decatur, Illinois, which I mentioned before. And we've created, we've applied for a process patent on our equipment line. We looked all over the world. We were in France and Belgium and the Netherlands and UK, and looking at the European technology and seeing that the lead time, waiting time, and importing was quite a challenge for us. So we went ahead and became, we basically sourced from North America, and all of our equipment is anywhere from Texas to Wisconsin, from Alabama to Seattle, Washington. That's how we built our line, and we're thinking about offering that line because we know it works well, and our herd and our fiber is a pretty high quality. We sell into our biggest sales right now. We're making revenue. We're not cash flow positive yet, but we're selling into the hempcrete, the hemp-based building material industry. We participated in the green building technology show in San Francisco about a month ago. What else can I say? We offer contracts to our growers. So we grew 800 acres this year in eastern Missouri and western Illinois. We had some operations in western Missouri, but they were a little bit too far south and they got hit by a drought. But we're expanding to 1,800 acres this year. So I'm pretty much, I get about 3 hours of sleep a night because I'm worried about that. And like I said, with New West Genetics, we hope to do a grain grow in Illinois. We're also raising our expansion money and looking at industrial revenue bonds in Illinois, and we're hoping that we can have discussions in Kansas as well. And then going on to what we look for when we're wanting to achieve an industrial hemp harvest or an agricultural hemp harvest. And I'm not an expert, but I've learned a lot of hard lessons, and it's a hard industry. And boy, Troy, I do want to meet you, and that was this awesome background you have as well. It starts out with soil testing. I mean, agronomically speaking, it's not only NPK. We do what we're doing is we're doing grid sampling. So we're going in and taking a lot of soil samples on farms just to see what the soil profile looks like. And it's not only NPK, it's zinc, boron, manganese, magnesium, and other micronutrients. And I think, people like Drew Kitt from iHempX would agree with that, and Melissa Nelson from South Bend would agree with that, for sure. And so we're doing variable rates, so that kind of saves on the fertilizer costs in the front end. And then we supply the seed to the grower. And I'll get into a little bit about the contract at the end. And we prefer unterraced ground in Missouri. There's a lot of rolling hills, so we like it to be a little bit flatter, but that's not a deal breaker. I'd love to say that no-till is the only way to go. I come from the conventional ag side, and I don't want everybody to boo me, but for no-till, you got to be an expert. You really got to know what you're doing in no-till before we'll engage in that. We had a couple of years ago, we had a pretty big no-till grow, and we had problems with soil compaction. And without really good cover crops in that strategy, it's hard to grow substantial what we're looking for. The soil bed needs to be loose, like 12 inches down. So we want to have a loose soil bed and a uniform soil bed to get started. And rotating crops, I'm a soy soybean corn guy. And I'd say Melissa Nelson from South Bend Industrial Hemp is probably one of the best agronomists in the country on hemp, but she knows Western Kansas and the wheat, you know, in those areas, how to rotate there. I personally like to follow soybeans because you got a little bit of nitrogen to work with in the soil. But you can grow on corn and soybean ground and adjust your NPK. And what we've seen is the NPK somewhere like it likes nitrogens of like 150, 80, 100, and it likes potassium in the flowering stage, especially. If you're using chemicals, which, you know, you got to manage the weeds. That's the big thing. What we do is we plant really narrow rows. We use a well-calibrated seed drill, and we drill very shallow, like 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch row. And it's almost broadcast, but we don't like to go higher than 7-inch rows. And there's a reason why. We want a 15-foot stalk that looks like a pencil. It's not very big diameter. I'd say we would probably not want to see more than a 1/2 inch diameter, especially for textile fiber. But we do take bigger, you know, thicker stalks. Our machine can process up to 1.5 inches, and that goes into the herd. For chemicals, I also own a chemical company I co-founded in 2015, so I kind of know this business. But we're trying to get to where we're 8 to 10 times less herbicide use than cotton or soybeans. So we do a burn down with like 1/4 gramoxone, which is paraquat. That's kind of an evil word, and glyphosate or clethodim, no more than 1/4. And once we manage the weeds in the soil, we plant right away. These are contact herbicides. They're not residual, so it doesn't affect your germination. And so we've had really good results just the next day planting. And in the planting window in like the Topeka area, I would say just you can adjust for your climate zone, is probably May 5th to May 20th. We like to be right around Mother's Day. So it kind of varies by zone. And like I said, planting shallow and having those long stalks, we've had amazing success, especially in Eastern Missouri and in Western Illinois. You know, we've averaged over 4 tons an acre of biomass right there using a very basic Jinma seed variety. And so that's why we're talking with New West and iHempX and other people about the seed strategy. And we're looking at our own research there with some partners. And then everybody likes to say, you know, hemp is so drought resistant. I say that's a myth right now, but these seed companies, we want to work on that. We did lose some acreage in southwestern Missouri due to drought. And so I wouldn't say that. We like to plant in a moist soil bed and not before a heavy rain. So we kind of watch the weather when we're getting ready. And it does like, you know, of course it likes rain. If you're under pivot in Kansas or you have drip tape, which I prefer, you don't want to flood the ground when you're doing it. So you want low water. It doesn't need a lot of water, so you got to be really careful when you're under irrigation. And then, so basically, it comes up and it grows. And I'll just give you an example. In Wichita, Illinois, we had a 50-acre, 2 25-acre plots. The farmer didn't need to do anything after he planted. He just watched it grow and grow and grow. And then by mid-July, we asked the state of Illinois for the inspection, and they were kind of late getting back to us. So on August 4th, we inspected it, and they made us go through all 50 acres, every acre, and they took the female, and it's predominantly a male. Jinma's predominantly male, but there's female in there. She took samples of female. And not only did we completely trash a Ford F-150, it took us like 6 hours to do it. So I hope that Kansas is easier. Missouri wasn't that hard, but we've talked to the Department of Agriculture in Illinois about it. But what happened was one half of the field, or the other field, we had 2 fields in that 50-acre plot. It tested at 0.355, so it failed. So call the Illinois Department of Agriculture, and they say, "Oh, we're going to come out and test the bales." And I'm like, "Why don't we start with the bales from the front end? It'd be a lot easier." So the inspector, it took her about an hour to test it, and there was non-detectable THC. So it kind of depends on the state. We have been working with Kansas, and we're really happy with their response so far. So basically, we're looking at about 106 days, maybe even less. We want to plant mid-May, harvest probably in mid-August. And what we've been doing, so the harvest process for fiber hemp is mowing, raking, retting, and baling. Those are the 4 steps. So what we like to do is use either a sharp sickle bar. What we found the most success is we found local harvesting and baling companies. Some have already had hemp experience, some haven't, but those customized baling companies know what they're doing. And they'll have the sharp sickle bar and the sharp disc mower, and they mow it down. And then we want to wait about a week, because our equipment, one great thing about our equipment is it doesn't demand like a 6 to 8 week retting time. It's more like 2 to 3 weeks. So we cut it in half just by the equipment. And so like a week or 10 days later, we'll rake it. And I would not use a wheel rake ever, because that's a waste of time. I'd use like a power or a hydraulic rake. And so those companies supply that to us, and it just works well. And then another week or 10 days later, we bale it up. And we found that there's companies like McHale, there's baling companies in the United States, and we know Bish in Nebraska, but we haven't worked with them yet. But there are baler manufacturers that have hemp kits for the bales. Unfortunately, 90% of the country has does round bales. We want big squares. So if there's any adjustment that the farmer has to make, it's probably in a bigger square bale, or like I said, we're going to contract that out. And the most important thing, and I think I've already talked about how the spacing of processing plants. So like I said, 100-mile radius usually works out, because if you get farther, and we've been buying it from farther away, the transportation eats up the cost, especially with $5 diesel fuel right now. So lastly, what's in it for the grower? Well, if we wanted to, we're in St. Louis right now, and it's a little bit far from eastern Kansas, but if we were to find a good grower in eastern Kansas, we would probably go to them and say, we're going to rent your ground for a premium. So we want to do better than what a local farmer would do for corn and soybean. And then we're going to hold your hand, and we're going to hire you to do the soil prep, burn down, and planting. And then your job's done. I'll bring in the baling company. I'll bring in the mowing, raking, retting, and baling company to do the job. That's kind of how you work from a long distance. From shorter distances, we're offering anywhere from 17 to 20 cents a pound for bales. We pay everybody that produces. We've even paid farmers half of their costs up front, and they didn't produce. So we've invested, because our reputation means a lot more to us than money right now. But we want to shoot for the grower to make at least the same profit as they would with beans right now. And but we think that offering a land rent agreement is probably the best way to go, because we can control the harvest and we don't have to rely, but there are farmers that tell me how to grow it. And believe me, farmers are smarter than anybody on earth. And that's why I'm in the agriculture industry. So with that, I'll turn it over to Frank and the team here for any questions.
Looks like you're muted, Frank.
Thank you, Rich. It's a wonderful thing to be able to share with us that view that of so many levels of experience, as well as geographical places where you are working. I mean, to hear from the growing side all the way to the processing side, where are you doing, where are you going, who are you working with, and what is your vision? All these different areas of the process that you have been engaged in. Thank you so much for sharing those things. We're able to learn and see things how they're being done, and probably follow your example. I just got a couple of questions for you. if you'd be so kind to entertain him for us. As we say, you work in, you mentioned in 3 or 4 different states that you're in, so we want to tap on that knowledge and that experience. Recently, Missouri disbanded its state-level industrial hemp producer licensing program. How have you seen that affect growers and processors?
It's definitely an obstacle, and I think if I understand the question right, you need to make it easier for the grower and you know to be able to do this, because we're not talking about THC or highly regulated. It shouldn't be as regulated as it is, and it does vary by the state. And if Kansas in fact disbanded, that's a step in the right direction.
Okay, thank you. The second question is, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for industrial hemp hurd and fiber in the market?
Great question. On the herd side, so our processing line, we can regulate the diameter and size of the hemp herd. It's got to be super clean though. And that's one lesson we've learned. And that's why we have 14 stations before it comes out. It comes right now, like our plant, we can dial it to any spec, but right now we have 4 different categories. So the fiber side is on one side of the factory and the 3 different herd levels on the other side. We do a micronized herd that we've already passed a stage 2 test with a bioplastics company, and that's more the micronized, almost dust particle side for binder in plastics to make it, to make it sustainable plastic. And then in the middle market, in the middle size is more like it's really high-end animal bedding. So we've been selling to markets in the predominantly like in Southern Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, Florida, all the way to Georgia, Florida, the southeastern United States. So it's like an animal bedding, and we package it up and we sell it, and it's by cubic feet, but it's like 27.5 pound bags. But our most profitable market at the moment is the building materials. We're supporting huge hemp building material projects going on all over the United States. Even we're shipping to California from St. Louis, which isn't the best, but that they can't find the quality. And that's one advantage that we have, is that it's very clean fiber. On the textile side or the fiber side, everybody likes to think about textiles. We think our best niche there is going to be into non-wovens. And I don't know a lot about the non-woven or processing, but if you're going for a textile fiber, you need a long fiber and you need wet processing that costs a lot of money. We've already passed I can't tell you the name of the company, but you'll know it. But they're looking at it, and the problem is they need millions of pounds of this per year. We have purchase orders on a herd. We have like 60 million pounds of purchase orders already signed, and they're not soft ones, but they're contingent on us being able to produce. And there's like a checkpoint where we have to produce that. And if you can imagine, it makes many sleepless nights just to get there, but so we're going on the smaller sales right now, but we have a lot of people kicking our tires.
Thank you. We are at 12:31, but I refuse to let Rich go, and I gotta go a little deeper on this last answer. So really, what I hear you saying, and correct me if I'm wrong or elaborate a little bit more, is not a matter of where this industry is going, because it can go in different directions. It goes back to that original premise. If we don't have the acres, if we don't have the production, then that limits everything else. Once you have the production, whether your processing is at the early stages, not a 14 station, but maybe 1 or 2, there's still a market for that product. Or you can go all the way to where you are on the bioplastics at the whole end of the 14 steps processing. Right now you're following the money, which you said, the bedding, and there's even a further processing for maybe paper or material. But the point is, if I hear you right, is the first thing is we got to grow this stuff.
Correct. And we've looked at the advanced markets and things like that, and we just don't, we know that there's other companies on this call that we would like to sell to further advanced products. Like I've seen anything from skateboards to, car paneling to everything made out of hemp, and it's, but we like to focus just on working with the farmers, producing a quality harvest, processing that harvest and selling the base material, kind of like 3M or the Dow Chemicals of the world. We don't want to have the huge household name. We just want to be the people behind it, along with our other companies that are on the call here, like IND and South Bend and others.
Okay, Rich, we cannot thank you enough, as well as all the other presenters. Not to brag, but it seems like we get better as we go on. We're looking forward to have a live in person in 2023, now that COVID and some things are behind us. On behalf of Wichita State and the SBDC, I want to thank you all for being here, but we're going to have our official adjourn time from Kelly. Kelly, always a pleasure to be with you and screen. And Rich, big round of applause to you, and thank you for bringing such pool of knowledge and wisdom and sharing it with us. Kelly.
Yes, I second that. Rich, thank you so much. It's a long road to go, and it has been to get here, and it's been great watching you grow over the years, and to be involved in a peripheral way like I was a few years back, making connections in Topeka for you guys, getting genetics works going. It's exciting. This is all just, it is very exciting. We know what the challenges are. We've seen what the pitfalls are, how we can move forward as an industry, and really that co-opetition, I think that we all are trying to strive for. It is achievable, and it's going to work through collaboration. So I just wanted to first recognize Morgan Tweet, Dana Ladner, Troy Palmer, and Rich Selby. Thank you so much for your time and your insight and expertise, and everything that you're doing to move this forward for farmers. So everyone, please keep an eye out for a survey that's going to come to your inbox regarding industrial hemp outreach and educational programming for the next year. And thank you each person for watching and for all that you're doing to advance hemp in agriculture, in Kansas, and business, and in just everyday application. So thank you so much, and wishing you all wonderful holidays coming up, and take care.